Have you thought about what position is the right position for Sonny Styles? Well, we have, and we have the answer to that question coming up today on Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, Tuesday of Locked On Buckeyes is here for you right there in your feed, and we got a fun one for you, talking about a very talented Buckeye defender and where he should play in the fall. Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes here on Tuesday, February 27th in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. During today's episode, my guy, our guy, Jeff Hunt is back. He is the host of the Jeff D Sports Podcast. Recently got done with the show, the OG3. I don't know if that's the official name, Jeff, of that trio there.
It is.
But it was him, Chris LeBron, Mo Murphy. They did a fun show, and I'm trying to get the audio on the podcast apps so we can all enjoy that thing there. But I brought Jeff on to talk about Sonny Styles and the proper position for Sonny Styles to play in the fall. Got another fun topic later in the show, but this one, I think it's very, very important, Jeff, especially since we're not very far away from the start of spring practice. Should he play safety? Should he play linebacker? What's the right spot for him? My first thought for Sonny Styles, and part of it is due to the players on the defense, put him at linebacker, not at safety.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've been thinking linebacker the whole time. The main reason for it is he seems like, obviously he's super athletic guy in every direction. That's what you got to have. Like, in my theory on linebacker, I try to think about the best case version of every position. And like, to me, the best case version right now in all of football of a linebacker, the perfect linebacker at this day and age, is Fred Warner. And I think, why is Fred Warner great? He can attack the edge. Mm-hmm. You can defend screen passes. Teams will screen pass you to death in today's offense. They want to get it out of their hand. They want to neutralize your defensive line, which we're assuming Ohio State's going to be able to bring some pressure with this experienced defensive line. So teams are going to want to get the ball out of their hand. They're going to get out of their hand quick. And so you got to have a guy that can explode, can get to those tackles in the backfield, not overthink things. And, not that I'm sure he's a fine safety, but the thing about safety is it feels like you gotta hesitate a little bit because you're still a safety. In Noles defense too, a lot of times a safety is really a defensive back, there's a lot of man coverage, a lot of zeros and stuff like that. And so now you got a guy in pass coverage that has to think pass coverage first. Can't let a guy, safety still not letting the guy behind you, regardless of what you do, how exotic it gets. Don't let a guy behind you. As to where, like, I think if you take an athlete like Sonny, you get him up in the mix. He's involved in every play. He can go sideline to sideline. He can be going forward a lot. You can do a lot with him. And he's a guy that if there's a fumble, tip pass, like he's a guy that looks like he's got some ball skills, some instincts. He just seems like an all around athlete, and he just wants to get out there and just be a playmaker and be a baller. And so I think, like, let that guy loose. Yes, the downside to any linebacker, there's still going to be times, especially against that team up north, when your guy might be outsized a little bit, might get pushed around a little bit. That sacrifice you got to make in today's game. When you got all these offenses going five wide, if you got somebody that comes right at you, you got to adjust to that when it happens. But you can't plan your whole season around having a big thumper in the middle anymore. You got to have a guy that can go in every direction. Everybody wants the middle of the field. If you watch up in the NFL, if you watch the Chiefs play, the 49ers play, they all want that middle of the field. So you got to have a guy that can cover some ground out there, but also attack and make some tackles. And it seems like the mentality for it, seems like the body type for it, seems like the skill set for it to me.
I'm right there with you, and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the linebacker spot. But if you go to the safety position, and if you want to call the nickel corner, nickel safety, whatever, cover
right.
safety, safety, there's three spots there that are safeties in Ohio State's defense. You got Lathan Ransom, who is back. Took one of them off the table. There's two more left. You bring in Caleb Downs from Alabama. You're not taking that cat off the field. There's one more left. Jordan Hancock is staying, and I think he's your best fit for that nickel spot. over Sonny Styles. And it's not saying Sonny Styles is bad. I just think Jordan Hancock does that in the pass coverage better than Sonny Styles does. Then you go to linebacker. Can Sonny Styles play linebacker? Absolutely. So you're answering that question already, saying the safety spots are gone. Can he play the next ones available? Yes, he can play linebacker. But then you say, who are the other guys there that might get on the field? Cody Simon, CJ Hicks. Simon's played more than Hicks. Hicks might be the next guy up. But do I think Hicks is better on the field next year than Sonny Styles at linebacker? No, I don't right now. That may change in the fall, but right now I don't. Do I think that Hicks is a better fit at linebacker than Simon? No, I don't. So I think my two linebackers right now are Simon and Styles, and I personally think this makes the defense better. One thing we talked about, Jeff, consistently when we were on the shows last year was the linebacker play was not up to the standard at Ohio State. Now, we do keep it in context. The standard of play at Ohio State at linebacker is probably some of the best in the country. I mean, you're literally being coached by a 3-time consensus All-American. Not many schools have anybody that's a multi-time All-American. He is a 3-time consensus All-American. So the standard is stupid high at Ohio State at this position. And I do think Sonny Styles, this might be the best thing for him as far as his draft stock is after the season, because he's played safety, he's played linebacker, and I think his best fit in the next level is at linebacker, not safety. I do think the Buckeyes defense will excel in a big way with Styles at linebacker, not at safety in the upcoming year.
Yeah, and I agree too. And what you say about the linebacking depth, that also, like, that's fine. Put 3 or 4 linebackers out there. You can defenses aren't stuck like they used to be.
No.
And something, I don't know if this is going to be any effect or not, because, obviously the Buckeyes have an established defensive coordinator, but with Chip Kelly coming in, I don't know if probably a lot of people didn't watch a lot of game film on UCLA last year, but go back and watch UCLA's defense. They did some fun stuff. I watched them play 90% of the game. They didn't even have a lineman put their hand in the ground on defense. They play fast. It's the classic amoeba defense. So, I'm not saying that Chip is going to interfere, but if he brings any of that stuff with him, sometimes you just line up with a bunch of athletes out there and make the offense think. You know what I mean? Like, if they don't know where you're coming from, and you can disguise things, so that's fine. Go. Whatever, go 3-4-4. Nobody cares. Just get your athletes on the field, let them run around and tackle. I think it's a great thing. And you brought it up. You want to talk about the perfect guy to coach a slightly undersized linebacker? That's James Laurinaitis.
Oh, that's it.
That dude played the position, pass coverage, tackling, run support, everything perfectly. And his whole thing was reaction time and sideline to sideline. And if you can teach that, you don't have to be the fastest guy in the world. You don't have to be the biggest guy in the world. If you can teach reaction time, reading, make your read and attack, blow up those screen passes, you can do a lot at a linebacker. And to me, rather than fight with the talented defensive backs, get the guy on the field. However, and guess what? There's going to be times to where he's playing safety and you don't know it until the snap of the ball. That's what Knowles is going to do. So the more guys you have out there that can cover, all of a sudden you're playing 7 men in coverage. But at the snap of the ball, it looks like you're playing, a typical, cover 2 or whatever. That's some things you can do when you have a guy like that. They haven't had that at linebacker for, a minute. The linebackers last year did what they could, but they just weren't as versatile as probably we thought they needed to be. We talked about that a lot. So why not? I mean, just you recruit these guys for a reason. Get them on the field. That's what I say.
That's it. Got to get them on the field. There's a way for Ohio State to have a wrinkle on the defense and to get more players on the field that need to be on the field. Jeff and I will dive into that next on Locked On Buckeyes. Wait a minute. Have you thought about what position is the right position for Sonny Styles? Well, we have, and we have the answer to that question coming up today on Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, Tuesday of Locked On Buckeyes is here for you right there in your feed, and we got a fun one for you, talking about a very talented Buckeye defender and where he should play in the fall. Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes. Here on Tuesday, February 27th in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. During today's episode, my guy, our guy, Jeff Hunt is back. He is the host of the Jeff D Sports Podcast. Recently got done with the show, the OG3. I don't know if that's the official name, Jeff, of that trio there.
It is.
But it was him, Chris LeBron, Mo Murphy. They did a fun show, and I'm trying to get the audio on the podcast apps so we can all enjoy that thing there. But I brought Jeff on to talk about Sonny Styles and the proper position for Sonny Styles to play in the fall. So, Jeff, before we get into that thought that I texted you about earlier, I am wondering how often we'll see a 4-3 defense at Ohio State in the fall. And I say that because I mentioned three linebackers earlier on purpose, because I do think C.J. Hicks is a player that they're going to try to get on the field. Cody Simon, Sonny Styles will be on the field consistently, but there may be times, especially in goal line, because some of the goal line formations Ohio State pulls out there on defense, I'm like, you guys are setting yourself up to fail. It doesn't make any sense. However, if you roll out there in a 4-3, you could easily move Sonny Styles over to that slot if he's not too light. If you're not putting a Darren Sproles at slot, cool. Sonny Styles can get him. But if Darren Sproles is out there at the slot position, like you're like, it's night for Sonny Styles because he's not getting him. But I really would love, you talk about that amoeba defense, I would love a variation with even your starters to where you can go 4-2-5. You can go 4-3. You can go 3-4 and really mess up the quarterback and the offensive coordinator's mindset and game plan by simply your ability to be versatile on the field.
Yeah, and it's basically like if you go back to like Ed Ogeron was the best at it. He played an awesome 3-3-5 over. And then he let that third guy that you're talking about in the linebacking crew, that dude might be in coverage. That dude might be blitzing. And that dude might just be just straight up playing, out at will or, Sam linebacker. And that's what you can do when you start getting these guys on the field that can do that stuff.
That's it.
It's again, the versatility that would be missing a little bit. And if you can get a guy that can take the pressure, like you said, when they motion out to the slot, because you get a lot of motion. Let me tell you this: next year, every offense in the country is going to have motion over 50% of the time. That's the trend right now. Figure out who's covering who. Get guys going in the right direction. I mean, the Chiefs are great at it. College teams are great at it. And so, like, your linebacker has to be able to chase a guy into the slot and not give up, 5 and 7 yard plays. So, we're assuming, that he's the guy that can do that. But I also like the versatility of it. If they don't, then you got a guy sitting there that can make a tackle. You don't have, if you commit to a 4-2-5, well, then, your defensive linemen are going to be where they are. Now, when you motion that guy out, you've got probably drawn a safety up. You can't bring a linebacker out. The defensive lineman can't get out there. So, like, a lot of times you wind up just with the defensive lineman rushing against nothing. Like, if it's going to be a quick pass and you're going your basic 2 edge linemen, especially if they're out at like 9 technique, they're not going to be a factor. They're just not going to have time to get there, no matter how good they are. That's how you neutralize ends. And so how do you go against that? You get more athletes on the field. Are you giving up that edge to a team? Again, that team up north, that's a different animal, but you better have a game plan for that day. But you got a lot more games than that. Like Oregon, for instance, you're going to have guys running side to side all over the field. You're going to be chased. They're going to make your linebackers chase them all day, sideline to sideline, unless you're just going to play straight up zone. But then if you're going to play up zone, fine. Let me take a former safety. Now I've got him there. Now when we play zone, he should be fairly comfortable with playing zone defense.
Absolutely, Jeff. There is a thought that I've heard quite a bit on other Ohio State podcasters all season: the jack position. Where has it been? Is it going to appear in year 3 under Jim Knowles? I know where it's been. It's not been in the playbook, or maybe it's been in the playbook, but it hasn't been on the field. I am a person. I'm always trying to find different ways to get the upper hand on the opposition. And I'm not a coach, but I'm trying to game plan here on the show for how can Ohio State get the upper hand on the team they're playing that week. there are too many, I think there are too many athletes on the defense for this to be an easy yes. You use a jack. Maybe the athletes on defense that I think are there, maybe they're not, which is why they're not using this position. But I do believe, Jeff, as it says right there on the graphic, it's time to use a jack position, ? Absolutely. It's time to pull it out because you have the guys on the team that could do it. And I mentioned CJ Hicks earlier. If your way to get Hicks on the field is to use this position this year, knowing that in year 4 for Hicks, he'll be a starting linebacker, do it. It makes too much sense not to.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is the team to go with it. It's the same thing we've been talking about. It's a versatility. If you don't, like you say, if you don't want to bring the 3 linebackers in, now's when this is always a choice with the jack position. Are you going to go slightly bigger and then, risk pass coverage? You're going to go slightly smaller, risk run coverage. And, if you can find that athlete, and that's the thing, you got that position, you have to have the athlete. If you try to force a round peg into a square hole, you're going to get beat. Because, if like, let's say JTT, everybody was like, oh, maybe he can do it. The problem with that is if you get him on the edge, even if he's showing, you throw a swing pass, he has a little trouble getting out there. He's just not. He's just not made that way. He's a bigger, leaner, more of a pass rusher. Sawyer certainly is as good as he played late in the season. He's come a long way. He's going to be a really good player. He has a skill set. It does not translate into chasing, running backs out of the backfield, because that's how you defend. You bring an extra blitzer, they're going to throw a swing pass, they're going to dump it off, they're going to pitch it. They might just pitch it wide, or you might have a running quarterback that just keeps it and rolls out. That's how you put that guy into no man's land. You got to have a real, dude to get out there. Nakobe Dean's probably the best in the last couple years was Will Anderson down there at Alabama. As far as like, man, we hope this guy doesn't blitz, but also he can chase you down. So yes, it's easy to say if you have Will Anderson, use more of the jack position. So it's somebody's going to have to show up in camp and prove that they can do it. I do respect Knowles for just, keeping it in the filing cabinet until he's got that guy. He hasn't had that guy yet. So, if Hicks is the guy, absolutely bring it out. You know what I mean? Go 2 or 3 down linemen, shift him or whatever, leave this guy out here on the edge, make the quarterback think, he's got to be able to affect the pass as long as he can chase down. You got to be able to chase down at that position. And, and again, if you're going to put him in the coverage, he's got to be able to cover. You're just going to be giving up yards. If they got a big old tight end that can catch, and if they got Travis Kelce out there, it nullifies that position.
Yeah, it does.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so like sometimes you just got to abandon it.
Yeah, that's it. You have to abandon it. But I do think I don't understand why they haven't used it. You mentioned now the initial thought, Jeff, that I had when Jim Knowles came over, you're going to convert a regular defensive end to – it's how they were going to use it, not how I would prefer. But they were going to use a regular defensive end and turn him into this hybrid linebacker to still keep some of your base a little bit out there, but you don't know what that guy is going to do. Tuimoloau, when he first came to Ohio State, I was like, oh, if he – now I know you want to get there, you want to gain some weight, put on that good, healthy – the healthy way, but I was like, I think he can do it, but then he's too big. Like you don't want 275 out there playing that position. Jack Sawyer, I don't think he's twitchy enough. Like I personally don't for that position, and I haven't really seen any other defensive ends that are primarily D ends that say, oh, they can be that. Then comes in CJ Hicks or Sonny Styles. I think Hicks is more the better fit now than Styles, but basically based on size. Like he's already built and sturdy for that spot. But the hesitancy with him is experience. Because if you have a guy out there that's not experienced and is on the field for the first time consistently, man, look, you get me Ohio State has to go up against Dylan Gabriel this year. And you don't think he's going to try to find a way to toy with an inexperienced linebacker? Trust me, it's going to happen. And so that's my
You got to be smart at that position. You have to be
smart.
disciplined. You have to be smart. Like it's fun to watch when it's working right. And again, it's just like you say, it's just a physical fit that we haven't seen yet. What I would imagine they'll do is that position will be like it'll be kind of like how tight end is on offense. Yeah, tight end's really not about the player anymore. Right. It's about where's the players out on the field. So if he's lined up in a certain spot, he's playing tight end, but he might be a wide receiver. Correct. He might be an extra lineman. So like Do I think that they're going to use Styles the way that you use a jack position occasionally? Absolutely. Do I think they're going to use Hicks? Do I think we're going to have one for the season? I just don't think the guy's just out there on the field. And again, I was with you. We all just assumed it was going to be JTT. It wasn't. Pete Werner was the closest.
Oh my gosh!
In the last several years.
Imagine him with this defense.
Oh, he would be a much better. He would be as good as he is with the New Orleans Saints right now.
Facts.
In all honesty, but it is just there's so much pressure on it. I think it's perceived that it's just like you're a free blitzer, but it's really not, because basically the offense is going to be keyed on you. It's like, okay, they're sneaking this guy up here. We know he's coming. We're going to throw right over his shoulder. But then that's it. But now if you don't blitz that guy and you drop him into coverage, now you start. But you got to be able to do that, as to where if it's Sawyer or JTT, go ahead, drop him into coverage is what the other team would say. Or you're going to be like, go ahead, put him in coverage. We will take that all day. Michigan, like, go ahead. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you're right. You have to have a guy that, like, makes the concerns the other offense. And it's getting better. Like, no complaints about this team. It was with some of the versatility they have, they're probably going to cover it up with Downs and Styles and, Ransom, all these guys, what they can do with moving these guys up. You're going to see so many switches to where you're going to have a safety coming up and all of a sudden he's playing linebacker or blitzing and guys dropping back and taking. You're going to have a lot more of that this year. So I'm hoping that the jack won't be necessary.
Right.
Do I think that we eventually, if Knowles stays, will he eventually bring a kid in that can do it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
He'll pop up, and there might be a guy that I really don't know about, on this team that does it. That's just a go-getter.
Yeah.
But like, again, go back and watch Will Anderson play. When we see that guy come in, then yes, we'll have a dude who can play every position on the field, but that's a rarity.
I was trying to find a fun way to end the show with Jeff, and Netflix came to my mind, and a potential Ohio State documentary that Netflix produces. We'll dive into that next on Locked On Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You're able to see the view from your seat before you buy. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out, and you're able to buy tickets in seconds with only 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Terms apply. Just download the Gametime app and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So I'm not sitting up here saying that there's going to be a Netflix documentary that Ohio State will be featured on. Not saying that. But if there was a documentary that Netflix did on Ohio State football, we can pick a team, a player, a game, anything Ohio State related. And I'm going to go first here, Jeff. Normally I allow the guests to go first, but I'm going to do mine first. If there was one player I would love a documentary on, this is tough. I want it to be JT Barrett.
Oh.
Because his career, people don't view him as a national champion. They don't win the national championship without him.
Oh, no chance.
We know and see all of the big games, the big runs, the big scores, the big throws, all of these things that he did. But when you think about top 5 quarterbacks in Ohio State history, he might be 4 or 5, or maybe even outside of that grouping. But, buddy, on the field, I don't know if there's a tougher Buckeye quarterback that I've ever seen in my life than JT Barrett. So when it comes to a player, I'm going with JT Barrett, number 16. Jeff, what player would you pick?
Oh, man, sign me up for that. So what I did was I took a year. So what I want to see is and a lot of people don't want to hear this. It was tough. The entire 2011 year, from the end of the Sugar Bowl to the tattoo fiasco, to Fire and Trestle, to Hiram Fickle, to throw in quarterback. I'm sorry, I forgot the quarterback's name. The freshman we threw in, Braxton Miller, throwing him as a starter, as sacrificial lamb, having a terrible season, deciding to play the bowl game, and going 6-7, 6-7, I believe they wound up going that season. But that whole year, and then off of that, obviously the master plan was to hire Urban Meyer, and then the rest is history. But I've always had a certain respect for that team of unexpectedly, no team has unexpectedly had their players ripped from them like that team has since. That was a unique thing. We're talking we're talking the Heisman contender in Terrell Pryor. We're talking a national championship contender that year. And it was the best running back, the best wide receiver, best quarterback, all ripped off of the team for what now is laughable. It's laughable that would happen now. They have to circle the wagons. They lose a legendary coach. Fickle gets thrown in there. They fight through a season with a true freshman quarterback who never expected to play football that year. And they fight through it up and down. You had Ryan Shazier, as the leader of the team and all that. They go through the whole season, winds up, and just I want to hear the inside stories of what it took to keep that team together, what it took for the players not to give up, what it took for them to bond together and fight through what they knew was going to be a disappointing season after they expected to win it all. I'd like to see that story and what came out of that was a lot of the dudes that survived that season became absolute warriors and wind up having another great 2 or 3 years at Ohio State, legendary 2 or 3 years at Ohio State. Showed some real grit and real character. And I don't know, I just always been impressed on what they had to endure, and none of it was their fault. You know what I mean? They didn't cheat. I said the word. They didn't cheat. They didn't do anything like that. And they got punished for it, but yet they fought through it and did it with dignity and toughness, and came out the end better for it. So that's what I would like to see.
When I think about a game specifically, JT Barrett's is a quarterback. And I was not a big fan of him, not his biggest fan when he was playing.
I was his biggest fan.
I have a way bigger appreciation and understanding of what he meant to that team now that he's no longer playing at Ohio State. And what are we now, almost 10 years removed?
10 years away.
Almost 10 years removed from his final year. I was like, my goodness, man, that's insane. But I want to go back, and this is not so much because Chip Kelly used to coach at Oregon. I think Chip Kelly was a coach of this Oregon team against Jim Tressel. That Rose Bowl, man, was it 2010 Rose Bowl?
That was still Chip. Yep.
I would love to just get the stories, because that was a big moment for Ohio State football. I mean, you're literally coming off of losing shortly before this. You're losing back-to-back national championship games. One to Florida, which Florida even said that when they got on the field and they saw before that, when they saw the film, they said, "Oh, we're going to beat Ohio State." And then quickly on the field, it was like, "Oh, they're bigger, they're faster,
they sure are going to beat
stronger." And then you lose. I think was it LSU the next year?
LSU was the next year,
and so you're losing
then
back
Texas,
to back. Texas as well.
They lost to Texas, but
you're losing to big brands. A little different the next couple years, and then that game. Give me just that game or that month of December, building up and leading up to that game. I remember Boom Heron's touchdown run. I believe it was to the right front corner of the end zone. And I was like, oh, okay, this is fun. I haven't gone back and watched that game in a very long time. I might need to just refresh my memory. But
it'll still make you queasy.
That game was so much fun to watch. It's the Rose Bowl too. I am a person that loves the Rose Bowl. Listen to a Johnny Manziel interview. He's like, hey, to people in Texas, the Cotton Bowl is a granddaddy of them all. Okay, great. That's cool for you. I'm from the Midwest. I love the Rose Bowl, partly because it's in California. I would love to have Cali weather all the time. So that's a big reason why. But Jeff, I don't know if you want to go a game, a player, team coach. I don't really care. What's your next thought?
I wouldn't pick one game. That's a great pick. And that was one of the most important picks. And it kind of goes with my thing of that whole team that come out of that. And if I had to go another player, I'd either do Braxton Miller, interesting guy that was there. You talked about JT already, but I would do, and I know there's been a lot of talk about him, but the story behind it and everything that he endured growing up, I would do Troy Smith. A kid that had no business making it, playing, college football. And I know there's been stories because he won the Heisman. So go ahead and give everybody, an hour on Troy Smith and what he had to go through, from his upbringing and some of the tough stuff. Ted Ginn really helping him out and, getting him through some tough times and stuff. Troy getting picked up as the last scholarship given out to Ohio State, and then becoming one of the best quarterbacks we ever saw in the Big Ten, winning a Heisman, going to a national championship game, being an absolute baller 3 times against Michigan. Go ahead and then, he went through some stuff. Then he went to the Ravens. He has the illness that eliminated any chance he had to beat out Joe Flacco. Doesn't make it in the NFL. Has a few minor, I won't call them minor, but has a few troubles after football. Comes around. Now he's a part of the Ohio State, program. He's a fixture. He's part of our family again. He's got the salt and pepper beard now, which I can't believe I lived to see that. So just like, just the whole lifetime of Troy Smith, I think would be inspiring. And, say like a lot of times we don't dig deep enough into what these players go through to get where they are. It's not as easy as it seems sometimes. And he's a true case of someone who fought and worked and, became an Ohio State legend.
This is not the last time Jeff and I, or myself and a guest, will have this type of fun conversation about a potential Netflix documentary on Ohio State football. The only way to stay in tune when the next time this topic might come up is to subscribe to Locked On Buckeyes on YouTube or wherever you get your fighting podcast. You can follow Jeff on X at JHunt006. You can follow me on the same platform at JStevens07. This has been Locked On Buckeyes here on a Tuesday. We'll see you next time.